All right, so this is my favorite part of the story. So we're getting to the good stuff now. We get to the battle, and David's ready to go. He's got his shepherd rod, he's got his sling, and he's got his stones, and Goliath is still running his mouth. It says, meanwhile, the Philistine, that's Goliath with his shield bearer. That's this little guy right here holding the shield. This is his little man, his little Kevin Hart. He's holding his shield, and he sees David coming up to him, and he sees David's just this little guy, and he's a handsome guy, and he's a healthy-looking guy, and it says he despised him. David was hated by Goliath. He said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods, his pagan gods. Come here, and I'll give you the birds to the wild animals. Like, Goliath is basically laughing at David. He's basically telling him, like, come here, little boy. Like, give me your little stick. Like, you think I'm a dog? Like, I'm not one of your little dogs, not one of your little sheep. Like, he's just basically laughing at him. And before we get into how David responds, I want to show you guys some things that you may have never heard before. So, to give you an idea of how large Goliath was, everybody's pretty familiar with Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was, a man among men, 7 feet, 4 inches tall. I don't know how tall this guy is right here, but let's say this is like David right here. This little guy right here is David. So look how much bigger Andre the Giant is versus our David guy right here. So in the Bible it says that Goliath stood at 6 cubits in a span, which is over 9 feet tall if you're using an 18-inch cubit. Again, I'm not that smart. I went to Fresno State. I don't even know what that is. But let's just assume that Goliath is 9 feet tall based off of this thing I found on the internet. So it must be true. The interwebs never lied to us. So Goliath's 9 feet tall. He just ran his mouth to David. So he's a little boy coming at him with sticks. And we just wrapped up Game of Thrones, and every single one of these characters at some point has just this amazing monologue before a battle. Post-battle, Jon Snow before the battle with the Night Walkers has this awesome scene about how their enemy doesn't get tired. Khaleesi, Daenerys was just always after any battle, before any battle, talking about how she was the underdog. And of course, Tyrion is just known for his soliloquies. So with that in mind, most of us are fans of this show. And the award for the best speech before a battle goes to, drumroll, check this out. David isn't just ready for this battle. He is setting the tone. He has just been listening to this guy run his mouth, because he's probably been there a few hours now, and this guy's just running his mouth nonstop. How often does that happen to us in DFS, especially when we start becoming successful players? Is the people that are middling players, they're the ones that are going to run their mouth more and more and more and try to discourage us. There's guys who used to run their mouth at me all of the time, and I just let my results speak for myself. Now when we speak, the tone is completely different. I let my actions speak for me. Before David lets his actions speak for him, he tells Goliath, listen, bro, this is how it's going to go. You come against me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come with you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, who you've defied. Again, this is what David's pissed about. He's not pissed that this guy's running his mouth at him. He's pissed that he's basically spitting on God, David's God. This day, this is my favorite part. This day, the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down, and I'll cut off your head. You get scared before anything in your life, and you read that, dude, I am getting chills. I've read that 1,000 times, and I still get chills. When we're feeling fearful, we gotta tell our fear. The Lord will deliver you into my hands. I will strike you down and cut off your head. David is not playing around. That's what I'm trying to encourage you guys. We gotta take this seriously. We gotta treat DFS like a business. The more you take, of course, we want to have fun. David's about to have a lot of fun, but he's setting the tone for this battle. I'm going to strike you down. Goliath said something I'm going to give you, I forget what he said, but he said he's going to give David's, body to the dogs or whatever. And David's no, dude, not only am I going to strike you down and cut off your head, I'm going to give your carcass, your body to the Philistine army and all of your homies. I'm going to kill you and all your homeboys, going back to the training day, the other quote that Denzel says is like, Ethan Hawke's like, yo, so screw him. And Denzel's like, yeah, screw him and anyone that looks like him. Like, that's basically like what David's saying here. He's like, F him and F anyone that looks like him. Like, I'm coming after you. And he says, I'm going to let everybody know that there is a God in Israel. Like, this battle is over. I've already won this battle because I'm fighting with God, and I'm not worried about any of you and your little minions and any of your chirpers. Like, David does not care. Like, he is ready to ball out on this dude. It basically says everybody that's here is going to know that it wasn't by this sword or any of my tools or your spear or anything else. This battle's God's. He's going to deliver it into my hands. I'm about to whoop your ass, is basically what he's telling Goliath. Like, if you get discouraged again, like, I'm not trying to convert anybody, but like, even if you believe in God or maybe you're not sure, like, read this, like, it will get fired up. Like, let God work through you to get you fired up if you're feeling sad or discouraged. And so what do we have next? We go into this, and David brings it. Like, he says what he's gonna do, goes after it. So David defeats the enemy with his trained weapon. That's what we need to remember here. David's ready because he's used his slingshot before. I read something, I think it was like in Malcolm Gladwell's book about David and Goliath, and he talks about like firing a sling. An accurate sling thrower could throw a sling, I think like 120 miles per hour. Like, could you imagine getting pegged in the head with a stone by Max Scherzer? Like, that's pretty much like Max Scherzer on crack is like how like David is flinging the stone. Like, I'm talking super fast. Like, you guys probably think I'm on crack. It's a coffee, I promise you. Anyway, so David just Max Scherzer a stone into David's forehead. But what we got to look at here is David waited for the opportunity to strike. So we see here that David's got a plan, but he didn't get ahead of himself. He was patient, then he executed. As the Philistine moved closer to him, then David struck. David ran quickly towards the battle line to meet him. That's how confident David was. Not only were they done talking trash back to each other, David is ready to settle the score. Like, that's how fearless he is. That's how fearless we need to attack our DFS tournaments, our fears. He slung the Max Scherzer rock, struck the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank into the forehead, and he fell face down to the ground. So David triumphed over the giant with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his stand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. So there's this giant. He's a battle-worn guy. He's been a man among men, warrior, and David took him out with a stone, something he picked out of the stream 20 minutes ago. So that's what we have to be thinking about is just because we don't have the credentials of some of these more successful players, like, we can develop a winning strategy that's dangerous. Like, we can develop a winning strategy that's scary. Like, I tell you guys all the time, like, as I move up, like, I'm not afraid of the big players. Like, I'm afraid of the guy that is out there and he knows something that I don't know and he's leveraged the whole field against it. It might not work, but if it works, this guy isn't winning some of the money, like, he's winning all of the money. Like, I like to joke around with you guys, like, when you have a day like that, like, you want to try to, like, your big days, like, you want to try to bankrupt DraftKings. Like, that should be your goal. Like, I want to win so much, like, I bankrupt DraftKings or I bankrupt FanDuel or whatever. Obviously, we can't do that, but, like, it's still fun to talk that way. Build ourselves up. We got to be our own cheerleaders. So we take a look at this, and this is just like poetry in motion. Goliath had to run in his mouth, pretty quiet now, and David said, like, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to cut off your head. And David doesn't have a sword. So David ran, stood over him. He took the Philistine sword. He took Goliath's own sword, drew it from the sheath, because Goliath was running his mouth so much, he thought the victory was so easy, he didn't even withdraw his sword. Before he could even withdraw his sword, he was already dead. David takes out the sword, cuts off Goliath's head. Like, I'm not telling you to cut off anyone's head, obviously, but, like, we got to have that kind of courage, like, that kind of confidence to, like, attack this battle, knowing that whoever's chirping and whatever negative, even if it's like our own negative voices that we're hearing, our family members or, our rivals or the touts or anybody that's basically trying to discourage, like, we have to fire back with our own plan. We have to stay confident. So we'll get into one more slide and then we'll wrap it up and talk about what we learned. So who's laughing now? David, like a boss. After the battle, the Philistines saw that their hero, Goliath, was dead. They turned and they ran. So all of, you see all of these guys, and, there's some really bad companies out there, and they've got, a legion of people, an army of people, and we know they're not any good. When you dominate a tournament, They're not talking now. Be undeniable. Like, be so good that regardless of people like you, they can't deny your results. Like, that's how you can stay confident in this thing. The Israelites returned from the camp. They're chasing the Philistines. So, David basically said, not only going to kick your ass, I'm gonna take all your boys, and that's what they're doing now. And not only that, David has his prize. He's taking the head back to the camp. Basically, it says that he put the Philistines' weapons in his own tent. So he's got Goliath's head. He's got Goliath's weaponry. Like, Dave's not messing around. Like, he showed up, said what he was going to do, and he did it. Like, that's scary. Like, we talked about last week with Kawhi Leonard. Like, that's the dude to be afraid of. It's not the guy that's running his mouth. It's the guy that shows up, execute a strategy that no one's thinking about, dominates the tournament. That's basically what David did. He was in this one-on-one winner-take-all tournament. He dominated, didn't say much, and now he's got all the loot. Give me the loot. Give me the loot, like Biggie said. Now he's got all the loot. He returns back. He's got the head in hand, goes back to Saul, and, he's still holding Goliath's head. And Saul's like, who is this dude? Like, who is this guy? Before the battle, Goliath is, pumping his chest. David says, I'm a son of Jesse of Bethlehem. Even though he just did something incredibly badass, David didn't think any higher of himself. Just like Kawhi. Even though Kawhi dominated, Kawhi didn't really celebrate till after the victory against the Warriors, as the underdog, as the David. And that's, if we have that kind of mindset, like, that is so scary. Like, that to me, like, that is a player to be reckoned with. Like, that's the type of players that we want to be like. When I get into a tournament and people see my name, like, I want them to be like, dude, I don't know what JG's going to do. He's probably going to do something crazy, and I hope he's not right, because if he's right, I don't stand a chance. Like, David knew that. Like, that's the type of mentality, that's the type of mindset that we want as players. That's why we're putting in the work. And I know that, like, I'm just having some fun with the story, but I'm hoping you guys are seeing the dots that I'm trying to connect. So we'll wrap up here, and we'll come back next with some of the lessons of where we saw tilt in the story, and then we'll talk about the biggest Goliath, the biggest giant in all of DFS, and how to overcome it.